What happens when a black CEO disguises himself as a janitor to test how his staff treats him? A day of humiliating injustice leads to a shocking revelation, as power dynamics are shattered and racial prejudice is exposed. But will he take action or walk away quietly? Keep listening to find out how one man turned the tables and changed everything in a single moment. Before we get down to business, we want to hear your opinion. Write to us in the comments. What is your name and from which city are you watching us? Your support is very important to us. We will be grateful if you like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for participating with us in this important project. Before we get down to business, we want to hear your opinion. Write to us in the comments. What is your name and from which city are you watching us? Your support is very important to us. We will be grateful if you like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for participating with us in this important project. Elliot Barnes stood in the pristine, glass-walled office overlooking the city, the weight of his thoughts as heavy as the view before him. As the CEO of a thriving tech company, he had climbed the corporate ladder with grace and determination, defying the odds stacked against him as a black man in an overwhelmingly white industry. His position should have made him proud, but lately, a bitter sense of injustice had started to overshadow his achievements. The racism he had faced throughout his career had always been subtle: microaggressions, dismissive glances, the occasional patronizing tone. But the deeper he rose in the company, the more he realized that prejudice wasn't just an inconvenience, it was built into the foundation of the corporate culture. His colleagues, some of whom he had mentored and supported, were now his biggest critics. They belittled him, undermined his authority, and questioned his abilities. The worst part was how easily they masked their biases, hiding behind politeness and professionalism, while subtly excluding him. Elliot had long felt that he wasn't truly seen by the people he led. They didn't view him as the CEO, the decision-maker, the visionary. He was always just the black man at the top. A thought began to form in his mind, an idea both dangerous and brilliant. What if he could turn the tables? What if he could experience firsthand the treatment his employees gave him, and to do so without them knowing who he really was? The idea settled in his mind with chilling clarity. It was time for a test. A test of character. A test of humanity. He decided to spend a day as a janitor in his own company, dressed in the uniform of the invisible staff who worked tirelessly in the background, often unnoticed and unappreciated. No one would recognize him in the drab, faded uniform. No one would see the CEO beneath the guise of a simple janitor. He would observe how his employees treated him, whether they would ignore him, mistreat him, or show the respect he deserved. His heart raced as he finalized the decision. The silence of his office felt heavy, but he knew that by the end of the day, everything would change. The power dynamics he'd endured would be exposed for what they truly were: fragile and tainted by prejudice. This was only the beginning. Elliot woke early, his mind buzzing with anticipation. He stared at his reflection in the bathroom mirror, a man dressed in the trappings of power, his sharp suit now replaced by a simple, faded janitor's uniform. The transformation was both physical and psychological. Gone was the polished CEO who commanded a boardroom, now he was just another faceless employee. His hands shook as he pulled on the uniform, a sharp reminder of what he was about to do. He had been through countless meetings, countless presentations, but this was different. Today, he wasn't just a leader, he was invisible. He would be a shadow in the corridors, unnoticed and unimportant. Arriving at the office building, he slipped through the back entrance, bypassing the usual flurry of activity in the front. No one gave him a second glance as he passed by security, just another cleaning staff member arriving for his shift. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video to show your support. Elliot stood in the supply closet, gathering the tools he would need: a broom, a mop, a bucket. He felt a strange sense of detachment from his surroundings as he prepared for his role. This was no longer the company he had built. This was a world that viewed him only for his position as the janitor, not for his intellect or leadership. He took a deep breath, adjusting the cap that obscured his face, and stepped out into the office floor. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and the familiar hum of the workplace greeted him, but it felt different today. There were no nods of recognition, no respect in the eyes of his colleagues. No one had any idea that the man mopping the floor was, in fact, their CEO. As he pushed his cart down the hall, he observed the small acts of disregard, the hurried footsteps that avoided eye contact, the whispers and smirks when he passed by. They were subtle but unmistakable. People treated him like he didn't exist, like he was invisible, just another cog in the machine, easily replaceable and entirely dispensable. He had known this treatment was likely, but now, experiencing it firsthand, the sting was sharper. It wasn't just a feeling of being overlooked, it was a clear message from the very people he had worked with. The employees he had trusted, mentored, and led for years had no respect for him when he was beneath them, literally and figuratively. The first hour was uneventful, the hum of the office machine blending into the background noise. Elliot swept the floors, methodically cleaning the spaces he once walked through as a leader. His mind sharpened with every step, keenly aware of the disdainful looks thrown his way by the employees. As he mopped near the break room, 2 young assistants emerged, laughing at a private joke. They barely glanced at him as they passed, but their words carried. Another lazy janitor. Probably here just to slack off. Who hires these people anyway? One of them remarked. Elliot's grip on the mop tightened, but he kept his head low. The insult was minor, but it stung all the same. This wasn't the first time he'd seen such dismissive behavior, but it was the first time he was the object of it. Soon, things escalated. One of the employees, Greg, a middle manager, purposefully dropped a few crumbs near Elliot, as though testing his response. Elliot, keeping his composure, cleaned them up quickly, only to have Greg look at him and laugh, a sharp, mocking sound. Are you done with your little chores, or do you need help with the next task? Greg sneered. The room around them grew quieter. People watched, some in amusement, others in discomfort, as Greg leaned over and threw a piece of paper towel in Elliot's face, further cementing the degradation. It was clear now, they saw him as less than human, an object to ridicule. The weight of it hit him like a physical blow. But this wasn't the worst of it. As he made his way to the hallway to collect the trash, he was followed by a group of employees. One of them, Julia, the head of HR, tossed an empty soda can directly into his cart, all while making a show of it, throwing the can with exaggerated force. You missed a spot, she said mockingly, grinning as she walked away. Elliot's heart raced. His mind screamed in anger, but he said nothing. He couldn't let his emotions spill over. If he did, the game would be up. The humiliation mounted as more employees saw their chance to show their disregard. As he bent to clean up another mess, someone sneaked up behind him and pushed an entire pile of paper into his mop bucket. This is your job, they said coldly. Not like you have anything better to do. The laughter that followed echoed in his ears, but he stayed silent, swallowed his pride, and cleaned it up. He had to endure. It was part of the plan. The day wore on, and Elliot's spirit began to break. The taunts, the ridicule, each slight, no matter how small, piled up like heavy stones on his shoulders. He had endured more than he thought possible, but there was only so much anyone could take before the weight became unbearable. By mid-afternoon, Elliot was mopping the floor near the management office. It had been a long, grueling day of endless mockery. A group of executives passed by, chatting loudly as they walked. As they neared him, one of them, Roger, casually dropped a piece of trash directly in front of him. You missed this, Roger said, barely glancing at him. But this time, something snapped. Elliot stood up straight, his back stiff, his eyes blazing with an intensity he had kept hidden all day. The mop he had been holding now felt like a weapon, a symbol of everything he had endured, everything they had put him through. He slowly turned to face the group, his voice low but firm. You think this is a joke? That I'm just some janitor you can push around? Let me remind you of who you're speaking to. Roger froze, his confident swagger evaporating. The others around him stopped, sensing the tension, unsure of what Elliot would do next. Without waiting for a response, Elliot pulled out his phone and made a single call. His voice was calm but deadly serious as he instructed someone on the other end of the line. Within minutes, the HR manager arrived. He was flanked by security, all clearly puzzled by the unusual request. Elliot's eyes never left the executives. "I think it's time for some changes around here," he said, his voice unwavering. The HR manager turned to the group, confused but attentive. Elliot nodded toward the executives, his eyes hard. "I'm firing them all." The room went silent. The air felt thick with disbelief. It was a moment frozen in time, as the full weight of Elliot's revelation hit everyone. The janitor, the man they had all mistreated, was their CEO. The shock on the executives' faces was palpable, their mouths agape as the truth sank in. Elliot stood before them, unshaken. The room was eerily silent, save for the hum of the air conditioning and the faint shuffle of feet as the security team entered the office. He made no move to break the tension, knowing the impact of this moment was more powerful than any words he could speak. "I gave you every opportunity to prove your worth," Elliot said, his voice cold and controlled. "But you saw me as less than. A janitor, a nobody. You couldn't even hide your disgust, your prejudice, when you thought I was just another black man. But now you see who you've been disrespecting, who you've been making a fool of." One by one, the executives began to speak, some stammering apologies, others looking for ways to excuse their behavior. But it was too late for apologies. Elliot had seen enough. The facade of professionalism they had so carefully crafted was gone, and in its place was the ugly truth: they had treated him poorly simply because of the color of his skin. "You think you can treat people like dirt and get away with it? That power and position make you untouchable?" Elliot continued, his gaze narrowing. "No. You were wrong. And now, you'll face the consequences." He turned to the HR manager, who was standing awkwardly in the corner, unsure of what to do. "Take them out. Fire them all. Effective immediately." The HR manager nodded, and the security team began to escort the executives out of the room. Elliot didn't flinch as they passed him, their heads hung in shame. He had been patient, had watched, listened, and now, it was time for them to face the repercussions of their actions. As the room emptied, Elliot walked to his desk, sitting down slowly, savoring the feeling of justice. For so long, he had been forced to mask his true identity, to endure the cruelty of people who had no respect for him. But now, he was reclaiming his power, not through violence, but through the unwavering strength of his position. The lesson was clear: no one, no matter their skin color, should ever be treated as less than. And for those who thought they could get away with it, Elliot was a reminder that the truth always has a way of coming to light. As the last of the executives were escorted out, Elliot stood up and walked toward the window, looking out over the city. He had made his point, but it wasn't just about revenge. It was about showing everyone, those in power and those struggling in silence, that equality and respect weren't privileges, they were rights. And now, the reckoning was over. But the work to build a new culture, one of inclusivity and fairness, had just begun.